to Nacht Waffen pilot, and today we have Joseph Powell back for part 4. And when we last left off, our armada that he was commander of had invaded Earth's orbit, and we stopped the United States being nuked, and all of the officers ended up captured by ICC. So I don't know if you want to pick up there or if you want to continue into the newer material that has come up for you.
Sure. I mean, I can pick up from there, no problem. I actually have more memories now of that whole situation. You are right. A nuke did get dropped, but it like that timeline was reversed and fixed by whoever these other beings are that are really powerful. You know, they were not enthusiastic about what happened. Like when we were helped in that escape that happened.
Oh yeah.
When I stayed behind,
I will just say it flat out. I had a other dimensional being, something that we know as a fire elemental, came and rescued me in particular from a psionic cage. And she melted the cage around me and then cut the straitjacket I was in. The man who had been torturing me, I blew up his head and left his body next to the melted pool of psionic cage. And I took all of the officers back to our ships and got the hell out of Dodge. Now, I believe at the time you requested to stay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you tried to bring me with you. You were like, come on, let's just go. And I was like, no. You know, I know why that bomb got dropped too, because it was like that was part of a possibility. And one of the individuals, after all those ships started, you know, picking their sides, all the individuals that were there, but one of them, after the big destroyer ship showed up, basically was like, oh fuck, and just hit the shit to start the explosion. You know, because it was a last resort situation, even though I told him, no, don't do it, you know. He ended up, you know, aiding and detonating one of those bombs. And after that, like, we ended up getting captured because we gave up, you know, because it would have been a slaughter, a wholesale slaughter. We ended up being on board the ship. You know, we got tortured. People were like, why'd you do this, you know? And they were trying to figure it out themselves. After you guys had taken off and left, I have memories of being not really tortured, but how you were talking about the Draco. I have memories of a Green Warrior Draco that used to be on our ship, coming over and using his abilities telepathically to read my mind and find out what all happened and why I did what I did.
Well, that when I sent a report home to Oberkommando, in English, that's High Command, I sent a copy to the Queen Mother of the Draco. And part of her response to both me and to High Command was that any of us involved in this particular escapade, that's what she called it, would be interrogated by her people rather than humans that, in her terms, didn't know what they were doing. So being interrogated by a warrior class Draco is a lot better than having torture by ICC. So it's a preferable solution.
Yeah, so like I was in a dark room by myself with one chair, And I was sitting there, and this Draco comes in, and he tells me, "Hey, I'm going to go into your mind. Relax. Don't try to fight it, because I will go in whether you fight it or not." You know, and he basically was telling me it could either be easy or I'm going to hurt you in the process, and I don't want to do that. So, you know, and he ended up going in my mind, seeing everything that I saw. And after that, they were going to return me. And I was like, I don't want to go back, you know? And I think that they chalked it up to, I lost my shit because of everything that I saw and heard, and just fucking went crazy or whatever. But they understood like why I did it, but they were like, what the hell, you know?
Yeah, that
And
was
then,
my response when I was in the altar during the experience. It was like, what the hell happened to you? So I've been concerned about you ever since, and wondering what happened to you, because I knew I took the Armada and we went back to our mission of rescuing colonists from a destroyed planet.
I think that I got put on one of the ships, but I don't know for sure because I have like slight memories of it, or like I'm on a different ship, but I can hear your voice over an intercom.
Oh.
But I don't know. I just that came up. It was still kind of fuzzy, so it was like I just wasn't put back on that ship. But it's like they did offer it to me, so it's like obviously, you know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It wasn't a mutiny from my point of view, because I did try to bring you back. It was, okay, until we get back into our own part of space, I was taking us there, and like a very temporary situation. And I did contact the superiors over commando to assess the situation and decide what they wanted to do. So I was not in any way in mutiny.
Oh yeah, no, and it's kind of funny too, because even when we were like face to face with, I think it was maybe ICC or whoever was in charge over us, that showed up and told us to stand down and stuff.
Yeah,
it
that
was just
ICC.
kind of, yeah, it was kind of funny because they were like, "Why'd you do that?" Like, it was like they were all shocked that I was willing to like go to that, you know, insane extent, you know. But what it really relied down to is the council that I came across. You know, they basically, between being in that area for, you know, being tortured, seeing that scenery that I saw for those consistent time frames, that they had me there to educate me on how I was going to act moving forward.
Now, this we haven't talked about. So you haven't mentioned this council before on air.
Okay, so this is I don't know like what kind of council it is, but it's made up mainly of almost like if you look up Misha Johnson's artwork for the Galactic family and stuff like that, right? That's what they were dressed like. Very bright, vibrant colors. And they all only spoke telepathically. Some of them spoke words, but it was only to emphasize something. But the majority of them were pissed and wanted me to be put to death. And they were made up of all different kinds of aliens. It wasn't just, you know, human-like. And they had mentioned that I had 6 million lives previous that I have lived. And they were asking why I was doing what I was doing, because I had lived more than just a human life. You know, because they were like, "Why are you doing what you're doing?" And I basically told them I'm doing it for my people. And when I told them I was doing it for my people, they were like, "But you've been more than just human." And I'm like, "I don't care." You know? And
from their point of view, you're caught in the illusion.
Yeah. And then they sat there and told me, well, if you're doing it for your people, then, because it's weird, because like they said that and then they reverted to a different stance to try to make me think more, I guess. But they were like, if you're doing it for your people, then why are you enslaving your own kind?
Yeah.
And I was like, a light came on at that point, and they were like, you know, if you really cared about your people, then why are you oppressing your
Are you there? Or am I off?
what? You know? And after that, because I remember going back and forth to Earth, so I already knew that it was still in existence, where most people didn't. You know, most people didn't even know that. That's why when I returned to the ship, I knew the coordinates and told you the coordinates to go to. But when they said what they said, it was my honor at that point. And I was like, fuck you. Okay. You want, you know, that's the, you know, when I said I was doing it for my people, I meant that. And that means the entire human race, not just the German people only, you know?
Yeah.
So that's when I basically returned to the ship. And then there was the other dude that I had brought through to speak on my behalf in front of the council, even though like when you deal with this council, it's not like dealing with a courtroom like we have on Earth, where you can just where you normally would bring people to come and speak on your behalf to see if you're lying or not. They already know you're lying, or they already know you're telling the truth.
Yeah.
So they thought it quite amusing.
You're telling the truth from your perspective.
Yeah, but they thought it quite amusing when I was like, don't I get to bring witnesses? And they were like,
No,
sure. You know, they were like,
the council operates differently. Yeah.
Yeah, but they let me do it too. They were like, oh, okay. It was like they were trying to humor me in a sense.
They wanted you to be happy with the results.
Yeah, I guess, you know. But it was like after it was Commander Ashtar that came that actually spoke on my behalf, because there was another guy that was there that I was working with on the ship when we were saving these colonists. And I brought him, the guy that was there before me disappeared. I ended up showing up right when they basically killed him. And then there was then there was another guy. Yeah, and then there was another guy that was there that I had brought to speak on my behalf for what I was doing, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to deal with you next," and then sent him back, because he was like, "Whoa, where am I? What is this place?" You know. And then he was like, he said my name, and I can't remember what the fuck my name was, but he said my name, and then he was like, "Where are we?" And I was like, standing there, and I remember like saying something to him, and then they had said with words, "Oh, we're going to deal with you next," and then sent him back.
Well,
you know. And then I brought the Draco.
Called in front of that council regarding this incident.
Oh no, it was regarding multiple situations. It was regarding the destruction of planets, how I basically was operating when I was destroying planets, because I was senselessly murdering them without hesitation. You know, it was like pay or die. You know, I wasn't giving them opportunity. You know, it was off of their first words, which were, "We'll pay," or normally they would be like, "Screw you," you know, in more human terms. And I would just be like, "Destroy the planet," you know. Whereas they felt that was out of line, that I should have given them more leeway, and that I shouldn't have been going around basically blowing planets up like I was. I mean, they don't have a problem. I think that's one of their biggest issues, is when you blow up planets, because it's like it's a living entity in a sense. I think, I don't know, like 100%.
It is, yes.
Yeah, so it's like
is a living entity. Yes,
they can take in consideration you destroying a species to a certain extent, because most species are on other planets as well. So it's not like they're wiping them out completely out of existence. But to destroy a planet, you're literally destroying an entire entity. You know, so from their perspective, that's a really bad situation. Like, if you drop meteors on the top of a fucking planet, that's one thing, because it can still regrow and come back sometimes, or still be in existence. If you just fucking blow a planet up the way we were blowing it up, to a certain extent it's alive, but really it's not what it normally would be. So they just felt that was out of line, and they were like, you need to die for this. And then like when I had started thinking, and I got so scared that I had different altars come out in the coming through, and one of my future selves came through and was like, I want Commander Ashtar to come speak on my behalf. And they were like, who's that? And one of the beings,
that was my immediate reaction whenever you said that name, is because I've never encountered anyone of that description out there.
So one of the beings that was sitting there was like, who's that? And then teleported from where it was sitting, because like the room that I was in was like stone. It was like some kind of stone, and they had seats and stuff, and it was scattered. It was almost like a mini Colosseum in a sense. But one of the beings had stood up and was standing up, and like they teleported from where they were to in front of me and asked my permission to look inside my mind to see who I was talking about. And I granted them that permission. And it was funny because it kind of grinned when it realized who it was. So I don't know 100%. I know that like this being has already told me that it's not who it looks like, right? And that the only reason why I'm seeing this individual as a male figure is because as a child here on Earth, most of our leadership that are in high positions are male. So I saw a male figure as a person of leadership, and that's basically the form it takes. It's not even that form specific.
That makes more sense.
But this being, Ashtar came through, was like looking around in this room and was like, whoa.
Trying to get his bearings.
Yeah, and was like, and then saw me and was like, what's going on, Joseph? And then started walking to me to find out what I was doing here and what was all going on and stuff. And like this being revolves around what would be considered love and light, and follows the principles of karma to an extreme extent. So if you do a bunch of fucked up shit, this being, its religious belief is you're going to get screwed off by karma, basically. Whereas if you do good things happen. So it walked up to me and was like, what's going on? And I was like, I started explaining, and he wasn't happy at all. He was quite pissed about the situation. And he basically let me know that this would be the last time that he would help me. Because he went through my mind and saw what I've done and saw why I was there. And when he spoke on my behalf, he let the council know the good things that I've done. And the council basically took it into consideration, but also stated, it doesn't matter what amount of good you do, that doesn't outweigh the crimes that you've committed. In a sense, like you've still committed crimes, you're going to be punished for your crimes.
Yeah.
And their punishment was going to be exterminating me as a soul. But when Commander Ashtar spoke on my behalf, they decided that they were going to take me and put me in that in between time and space as a punishment, to look at scenery and lose my shit basically until I learned my lesson and thought about the things that I had done. Before that, though, there was a Draco.
Destruction of a being as a soul is an extreme punishment. Normally, it's destruction of the being in its current form, and then you're handed over to the Lords of Karma for a length of time, anywhere from 10 to 50,000 years. So, and they're not real nice.
Yeah. So when they judged it, that I would basically have to spend time pondering on my actions in a nice way, of the way that they put it. Commander Ashtar came up and hugged me, and basically let me know, don't ever ask me for anything again, and I was like, because he loved me in a sense, but you know, in that like I'm an existing being and I have good in me, but he was revolted by knowing what I had done. But then when he hugged me, he whispered in my ear and told me basically, you know, just keep calm and just focus on trying to sleep. He literally knew exactly what would happen, how to get around it. And that's why, like, I went through it 3 different times. So it's like if you're able to basically focus and talk yourself into sleeping, basically, which is putting yourself to sleep in a monotone voice. So when they take us and train us and break us and stuff like that, and try to brainwash us into certain ways of thinking and stuff like that, they use monotone voice to do so. So you can use monotone voice to put yourself.
Neurolinguistic programming is a monotone voice.
So I was able to use that to put myself to sleep. And because normally you're just stuck there and you're standing there and you're focused and you end up going nuts because you just can't handle it, you know? So I was able to put myself to sleep, and then the being that had brought me there teleported in and was like, have you learned your lesson? And I was like, I could do this all day. Because it's like, when you do that, it seems like seconds or minutes. But if you don't, it seems like centuries, you know? And I was like, I can do this all day. So he's like, oh, really? So he's like, oh, okay. So you haven't learned anything yet. Good. And then made me do it again. So I went through it again, and he came back through, and I was like, man, I could do this all day. Are you sure? Are you just going to let me go at this point? You know? And he was just like, oh, really? How about I leave you here forever? And when he did that, something in me snapped, and I was like, no. And I got scared. And once I got scared, it was on. There was no calming me down. And I literally was there for an insurmountable amount of time where I just went nuts. And he came back and he was like, so have you learned your lesson? I was like, yes. I don't want to do this again, you know? And that's when I was basically taken from that point. And then I don't know if there was any conversation in between there, but I was returned back to the ship. And then I was in front of the guy that had already seen what I saw, but didn't like was going to be next. And I told him, he was like, well, let's continue doing what we're doing. And I was like, no, fuck you. I'm done. You know, I'm not doing this shit anymore. Go fuck yourself. And he was like, excuse me? And I was like, go fuck yourself. You know? And he was like, no, we are. I was like, no, I'm not. Fuck off. And then he disappeared. And then I ended up reappearing in that council room. And he was like, Joseph, help me. Like, well, he didn't say Joseph, but he said my other name, whatever that name was. I'm just going to counteract it with my name. He was like, Joseph, help me, you know? And I was like, I warned you, bud. You know, I'm like, I told you, because I had before I started telling him to fuck off, you know, I had told him, you saw what I saw. I'm not doing it, you know? And he kept pressing the issue, and then I started cussing him out. And then he ended up there, and then he was like, help me. And I'm like, I warned you, man. You know, because it was in between the stuff that I had done, and then us messing with time to a certain extent. Like, there was a lot of why I was brought in there and why a lot of our officers were taken.
A lot of the time travel that is practiced is in violation of Galactic, I guess, protocol. And there are reasons for it. And we had been doing a lot of time travel to rescue these colonists. And since that altar is still out there, but has returned to this body because of the time travel, I know that we were unable to rescue more than half the colonists from that planet. And that has been like a major a major downer, that yes, we took every ship in Nacht Waffen, and we took Draco ships, and we took Kruger ships, and we were still only able to rescue half the people. And we reached the point where we could no longer go back to that moment in time to rescue anybody. And 500 million people were left behind. All because Oberkommando had told the Guardians to F off. So in the course of the last 5 years or so, the German High Command has had some real humbling experiences, and a lot of operational protocol has been, they've been informed that they were in serious error doing this. And there have been a couple of times I've been called into, not my German officer alter, but me from Earth. I have been called in to High Command to explain to them what's going on, because I have an alter who is a court official with the Galactic Authority, the court that is just off of Saturn is where that altar works. And I'm not a real important person there. I'm in between a bailiff and assistant prosecutor, but it's where I'm paying attention. I know what their standards are. I know what the rules are. And so I started telling Oberkommando, this is what you're in violation of, this and this. I gave them the whole list of things they were in violation of, and they were like, oh, well, thank you for letting us know. So
Yeah.
I have no idea if they followed up on it or not. So
that's okay. They're going to be humbled pretty soon.
And my alters who work for them are busy rescuing these colonists. They're not doing anything else because there were so many people that needed to be rescued. So it's not it's not like I'm out there blowing people up right now. So and since you've seen the light and you were the commander that was asking me to, I probably won't be in the future. Yes.
Well, our future it's going to be pretty intense. I'll just put it
So
that way.
you want to talk about that, since you've been, I don't know if these are visions you've had or if you've gone through the altar and have come back.
So these are alternate lives that I've led. So I've been here, to count that I remember at this point, 6 different times now. I'm not even from this timeline. I am from a different timeline.
Okay.
So this would be your guys' 5th time. I
know that I am at some level part of the mechanics of this timeline. So I'm not allowed to leave. So
that would be an understatement, but yes. So basically what it is that this would be your 5th time being here in this moment, in this same body, which is what most of you guys are going through. Within the coming years, a situation is going to occur where either this planet is going to fall to the Dark Ones, which is what they call them, or it's going to be liberated and humanity is going to have the opportunity to become a spacefaring civilization. We have failed 4 previous times before that. I am part of a handful, a 5-unit squad, a unit of 5 people that go and fight an individual known as Pindar. The first time I went through this, Pindar was who he really was which was a white Draco. Then he came and cut a deal with me before I realized who he was, playing on my emotions, to put me in a position where basically I am the one who's sitting on the black crystalline throne, so that as a puppet, so that he wouldn't be attacked outright. There's also, I believe, 4 or 5 other attack units that will hit different locations. Veronica discussed it in our first interview that we did, because she remembers a lot of this stuff. So she's like me. We're basically considered, I guess, you can consider us like time soldiers in a sense. There are individuals that go between timelines and different universes, and we basically help guide an alternative if those individuals can't deal with it themselves. So the Joseph that I used to be, basically, I believe is either, the way it was explained to me by Commander Ashtar was, has either been removed and gone to a timeline where he will succeed, or has been kind of integrated in a sense, if that makes sense. But in my timeline that I came from, I fully integrated completely. I lost everything and only focused on integration, and became completely whole. In doing so, I'm able to jump into different altars and start fucking shit up in all different groups. Here now, I haven't integrated completely, but I still carry over those memories from those altars. To a certain extent. And then there's situations where I'll see movies and I won't have to actually watch the whole thing. I know what they're about because I've already seen them. So in the first timeline that I went through, so there's 0 starting point, which is we did nothing and there was an invasion and we were taken over and enslaved as a species. That individual,
the version of that in this timeline is the hoax invasion that the Department of Defense thinks is a hoax invasion, but in reality it's not.
Yeah. So in that timeline, I have an individual who actually works for the government specifically, and he knew what was coming. So he decided to, with a group of individuals like us, go back in time, take us as children and put us through the hardest training that we would ever have to go through. So all these individuals that are fighting in these units are part of that. So that's why we're so fucked, but it's made us stronger, if that makes sense.
Fucked is more how I feel, and not in a fun way.
Yeah, but we all agreed on it. Like, this was an agreement. We were already being screwed with. Therefore, it was only to get us to this point so we can deal with the threat. So that was ground 0. Then we went to the first time where I interacted with Commander Ashtar, because every time Commander Ashtar basically takes me from wherever I am in whatever situation, whether I'm integrated or not integrated, whether I'm ready or not, and I have to fight this being. So I get to make my own unit from people that I trust.
Okay.
So the first time that I recall when we went to go attack them, I made the unit that I was with, I brought you, I brought another woman that I know, and what was it, James Rink, Veronica, and I think the Max Spears's girlfriend. I can't remember what her name is off the top of my head.
Sarah.
Sarah. So the reason why Sarah was there was because of the simple fact that she found out that I think that was either the first or second time. I don't know. It's kind of fuzzy, but it's like I've had to sift through all this stuff. The reason why Sarah was there was because I was part of the unit I was part of a small unit that went in and killed Max Spears. And we've done it, I've done it 6 times technically, but 5 times in this timeline.
Why do you kill him?
Because he's a traitor. Well, that's what they believe, is he basically betrayed our unit leader, which is Michael Prince. Like, when Michael Prince basically was like, fuck this guy, we were like, okay, fuck him, he's dead. So we went and killed him. That unit, if you want me to get into that unit was made up of Anthony Zinder, I think his name is. He's public. Michael Jaco is part of that unit. He's public. Max Spears is clone self, who always injects him and never wants to not be there. So his own clone killed himself, which is weird. Like, it's like watching it happen is insane, but his clone doesn't die. So I don't know how all that works. I don't even know if we're actually clones. I think we are those individuals because we were taken as children and we lived out our lives, and then we were brought back in time and lived out our normal lives in this. But we're actually on a military base where we've been kept. You're also there because me and the other ones in our unit try to approach you to take Max Spears' place because we don't want him to have to go through killing himself, but he takes it as a personal affront. So he's the one who injects himself in the neck, and it's me and another individual that hold him down. And every time we kill him, he hangs onto his necklace that has the gold key and the black dragon, and he begs us not to take it from him, and we end up taking it off normally. And basically his altar, it always looks at him and says, "You're a fucking traitor," and then kills him. Like, injects him. And if you want to know, the individual that did the autopsy is the one who gave us the drug to inject him with. If they do an investigation, they will find that he has an offshore account where he had money funneled into an offshore bank. And the chief of police was also involved in that because he was following orders from his higher ups.
Anybody to blame. So
now his girlfriend, if she actually does a regression, she will find, which she's been afraid of because she doesn't know. She knows that there's something and she's afraid to see it. And she will eventually come out after she sees me in an interview because somebody gives her a video of it. And then she will admit that she's been afraid to do a regression because she doesn't really want to see what really happened. But we have her activation code for her sex altar, her sex kitten altar. And we use that code to activate when she opened the door. And she basically tried to screw around with the unit because she was in her sex kitten altar. And we basically told her, if you want to turn us on, stand here by the door silently and don't move. So she does that, and then we walk through with our weapons, and we go in, and he's normally laying on the couch asleep. And it's like I think it's a black and gold couch, and then it has like this French kind of mold trim around it. And he wakes up as we basically hold him down and assassinate him. And then we leave, we deactivate her. She just comes to and is like, "Oh," and goes and sees him, and then shit's pouring out of him, basically. So that's how he was killed. And that deals with a lot of situation because those altars, what we do in that unit is we go down and we hunt down aliens that come here that aren't authorized to be here.
Yeah, I knew there was a team that did that.
Yeah, so, and that's also tied in with the 1,000-Year Reich and a bunch of different stuff that comes along with that. But anyways, yeah, so in the timelines, the war is basically between a White Draco. It deals with the crystalline Black Throne, which is a collective hive mind, and it feeds off the energy of Gaia and turns it into a negative form of energy that when you sit on it, you feed off of it and it strengthens you, but it also at the same time fucks you up.
There's a lot of things that do that.
Yeah. So, and it's consistent. It's like negative dark energy that you just sit there and feed off of. So I have memories of sitting there and feeding off of that. Now, me and Michael Prince, you worked as this unit. We worked with this white Draco to deal drugs on the streets in England and here in America. And the point of that is when you drug people up, it lowers their frequencies and it softens the battlefield. So I don't know for sure what these beings are involved in, but there's multiple different black crystalline thrones on other planets, not only just in our solar system, but outside of our solar system. Mm-hmm. And it's like a hive collective. Yeah, so it's like a hive collective. When you sit on it, you can conversate with other individuals, but it corrupts the shit out of you. So this white Draco that we're dealing with, you know, he basically is like, you know, push more drugs on the streets. And I remember like being in the room, having memories of standing there in this room, listening to him basically bitch us out because we're not doing enough. And we're like standing there, and me and Michael Prince are always like, fuck this guy. Like we're doing everything we can, you know, you can only fucking do so much, you know? And that's why when he talks about pushing drugs and stuff, I don't recall him ever clarifying who we're doing it for, but that's who we're working for. Eventually, once Michael Prince comes out publicly, that altar is given the opportunity to take the white Draco's place to sit on the black throne. In his mind, he thinks that he's going to do something good with that. But like I said, the black crystalline throne corrupts you. So it brings out my Draco genetic side when I sit on this throne, and I become more Draco than human. And I become more primitive, I would say. Like, that's the way I feel when I was in that body. Because when I was 14 and got returned, back in like 2002, so it was actually before he came public, because I don't think he was public in 2002. But back in 2002, when I returned, within a small portion of time, I was taken as part of the deal that I made, and I was offered the chance to sit on that throne. And I also came back, and when I started losing my shit, my main altar my main self that was out in space with Commander Ashtar takes over and puts my mind back together so I don't die.
And basically, probably a good thing.
Yeah, and puts the other altars that I had, compartmentalizes them back to where they should be. Because I have memory of like sitting there and meditating, which I never did when I was that age. I was raised Christian, you know, and all that other stuff. So meditation was never involved in anything that I did, you know, so that was a whole new thing. I just sat down and knew what I needed to do. And then something took over, and I basically started compartmentalizing things back in where they needed to be. And what had happened was I went into the Akashic records, which there was a light being that shows up. Like when I showed up there was a light being that showed up in front of me and was like, "You're not supposed to be here," you know? And I'm like,
I just wanted to check at the Akashic library, got to the building, headed through the door, and there was a brick wall blocking me from the library. There was one time that they let me go in and observe someone else there, but I was not allowed access to any of the materials.
There was several different light. It almost looks like a spirit form in a sense, from what I could see. They were like little spirits, little light balls of energy, of light living force. But it was like this being showed up in front of me. He's like, "You're not supposed to be here," and like talk just like that. And I'm like, "I just came to check out some memories, man." And he was like, "What kind of stuff are you trying to look at?" And I'm like, just some memories from my childhood." And he was like, "All right, but you can only see those." And I was like, "Oh, thanks."
I haven't even gotten that far. I start to go through the door and wham, there's a wall.
Well, the point of that,
I come out of the trance with my nose sore. I mean,
so the point of that was to find a memory of my childhood to ground me in that point so that I wouldn't fucking lose it and lose myself in other altars, which is what that being was basically doing. And I pull this memory out, like I walk up and then I pull this memory out, and it's like when I do, it's almost like I'm pulling out a drive core, and then a memory pops up from my childhood, and it's of this girl that was part of the school that I was in, and she's also a super soldier, and she was technically, I think, supposed to be my counterpart, because I have memories of when I was a kid and I was like hanging out with this other little girl, and she saw me and walked up and grabbed me by my fucking hair and lifted me up out of a pool with one arm.
Okay.
And she's scrawnier than I am. She just lifts me up. She's like, "You're supposed to be mine," and I'm like, "Let me go," and I'm like grabbing onto her arm because it's like tearing my hair out of my head, and I'm like, "Let me go," and then she drops me and shit. It was weird, but that literally happened like at a pool area where I lived, in the vicinity that I lived at. So that was a pretty interesting memory. But I took a memory of her to ground me, which was weird. I don't know why. I'm assuming that's why. But past that happened, then I come to, and then I go and I try to trance out again, and when I do, I end up battling this being that is called Pindar, because that's my altar's name, I believe, that I chose for that specific altar. And we battle each other inside our minds, and as part of the deal, if I won, which I barely did, that I would be given, I think, 15 minutes.
That's interesting that you chose that name for your altar, because in Drakh it means penis.
Well, if you look up the definition of Pindar, which is Pendar, it means it's part of an actual royal house, I think, or some kind of royalty, and it means guiding, someone who guides the sheep or some shit.
That's the title for the head of the 13 families. It's not his name, it's his title. So when one Pindar dies and they elect the next one. So, yeah.
Yeah, so what happens is...
In Drakh, it means penis. So they're saying,
he is kind of a dick. Well, it's funny because I have memories of writing this name down, by the way, when I was a kid. Because when you're a kid, when they go to break you and they make these altars, they give you the opportunity to name them, but they don't tell you what they're doing. They're just like, "Oh, pick 10 good, cool names." So that was one of the names I picked. I remember writing that name down, and the guy that took it and read it was like, "Pindar, where did you get that from?"
Yeah.
Like, it freaked him the fuck out, I mean, when he brought my higher self out, it freaked him out too, because when I came out, I was like, "What do you want, mortal?" And he was like, "Who are you?"
Yeah, I have one of those too, but we don't talk about her.
Yeah.
I had a counterpart that was supposed to be my partner this life, and he got himself killed in Vietnam. He has reincarnated, but he's young enough to be my grandson.
So it's like, anyways, so the whole point is that in that timeline, his girlfriend came along because he found out that individual that's sitting on that black crystalline throne is the one who was there that killed killed Max Spears. So she was like on a vendetta situation. She's like, "Fuck it, I'll go. I'm gonna kill that motherfucker," because once you sit on that black throne, even though he is an alter and a clone, from my perspective, he has severed himself from me and no longer is a part of me. Like, there is no connection anymore because of the power that is gifted to him from that throne. So he no longer is a piece of me. Once he dies, I can integrate him, but I'm told not to. By Commander Ashtar directly. He's like, "Just leave it,"
Peter the Insider told me that for most people, reintegration was a good thing, but it was not for me. But he never explained why.
Yeah, well, I mean, he also never wants to touch on who Pindar is either, so.
Yeah, he got.
Once I start asking him on his videos, which I already did recently,
He.
they don't ever even bring it up. It's kind of funny.
We did that call on Skype, and he went through 5 altars, and I mentioned that I was working on reintegration, and he completely freaked out, and then went to the next altar and never told me what it was, and started stuttering and could not get off the call fast enough, and he's never spoke to me again. So
well, he works for the enemy, so I mean, what do you expect?
he does work for ACIO, and they are who keeps the records on everyone who either is an ET incarnated or who has contact with them.
He also works for the German Nazi faction, that is the real Nazi faction that has never left, that has still been here.
Okay.
That is working to try to bring the Dark Ones into this reality. So he supports the 1,000-year Reich. But
yeah, the ones that I interact with just wanted to go out into space and be left alone.
yeah, so I mean that's why she was there, part of that unit. She accepted that and wanted to be there specifically for that. So whenever I'm taken by Commander Ashtar, they're able to pull up whatever codes for whatever altar that I need. And I think it's mainly because they can go inside your mind and they can see everything. So they can give me activation codes. You were there. You were not happy to be there. You didn't want to be a part of my unit. And you were like, no. And I was like, I had your activation codes. I don't remember them off the top of my head. I wish I did. I'd give them to you. Later on, once I start integrating and stuff like that, I'll start getting actually some of your codes, your activation codes. And once I get them, I'll give them to you because I know that you really like having them.
I would appreciate that. I would like to reintegrate. And I've reintegrated 31 out of the 2,200.
Mm-hmm.
And I use 2,200 because the 13 cube is 2,197, and I had 2 more created after I came back. My daddy locked me in a closet. So yeah, I would like to become a whole being again, and whatever abilities I had there have control of them. So I'm not sitting here oozing energy out and frying everybody's electronics just because I'm pissed, and I'm not creating whirlwinds in the area just because I'm mad at somebody. I want control so that I'm not a danger to others.
Yeah, so it's you were not enthusiastic about the situation. You didn't want to be involved in the situation. And I basically used your activation code to bring out your Solar Warden altar, which knew me and understood what the purpose was of everything that we were doing. And you basically gotten, and
now you need to understand, me sitting here right now, I have no memories of Solar Warden at all.
I know.
Okay. I only have memories of Nacht Waffen, Kruger, and the CIA.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. But I've only reintegrated 31 altars, and there's lots more that could be anything.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so once I activate your altar, you're like, oh, hello. You know, you basically, you remember me as an officer, and you're like, you know, I'm like, hey, we're going in, we're going to fight. This is what we're doing. We're trying to liberate Earth. And they're like, all right, you know, I'm there. So I'm able to put up to me and 4 other individuals into like this situation where we're able to become our younger selves again, being fully healed back to our prime age. And then if you are not fully integrated, which nobody has ever been in the timelines that I've been a part of, and even my alternate, even from my actual timeline, I'm able to have the opportunity to either have myself fully integrated or to forcefully integrate somebody else. And the first time I went around this situation, I had you do that. That way I could bring out your abilities to blow up people's heads, so that once we were on the battlefield, I could use that so that you could basically blow up our enemy's head and we could move on. The major threat. So that's why you were a part of the unit. You also didn't want to be a part of the unit, and I didn't give you a choice, which is fucked, you know, and I regretted that and still do. And it's not something that I've ever done since. So it
Well,
was
I'm glad
just,
you learned from it,
yeah,
because
it was
free
a do or die situation. That's what it
free
is.
will is the, okay, I have my own marching orders, and I am completely bound by honoring everyone else's free will. Everyone, including the enemy.
Mhm.
I have to be in a self-defense mode to be able to do anything to the enemy.
Yeah.
They have
So,
to be attacking me.
yeah. So anyways, like, James was there, and the reason why I picked James is because he's a super soldier. So I brought James along. He just fought because he was like, fuck it, you know. I mean, you know, he wants to see a free Earth. So it was like he was down to do it. Then there was another woman that I know that isn't public, and she was there because of Will being killed by the son of a bitch. Because Will basically was like, fuck it. Huh?
Which will?
Will Glover.
Okay.
So when he finds out, because me, him, and this other woman, we basically know each other outside of these bodies. We've been coming here for a very, 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 very long time. And we've been fighting these dark ones since they came here and took over the planet. Either way, he finds out, he fucking goes nuts and starts hunting this son of a bitch down. He doesn't play it. He doesn't play games. He goes into astral form and just starts hunting him, taking out every aspect that he can in astral. And then what happens is this individual Pindar decides that he's going to coax him into a trap and then kills him. So he ends up being killed. And once that happens, the woman that I know, she loses her shit and hunt. Basically, her whole entire fucking thing is hunt him and kill him, no remorse, death only. That's basically what it's about. And once we get there, we ended up dying. And in that time, I think most of us died actually, but in that timeline was the timeline where Veronica talked about California falling off into the ocean. I don't remember how it happened, but it was part of us failing. Me and her are the only ones that survived and escaped from memories that I have now. That whole situation is crazy, and basically all the super soldiers are being hunted down and murdered. That's what happened in the first time. The second time that we went in, I get to a certain point in life, like it is now, where I start remembering this shit from previous lifetimes, from these previous lifetimes. And I remember every way that I failed and things that were successful. So there's individuals do the same thing, not all the time. There's different variations, like maybe your hair color might be different. You might have dyed your hair a certain way, or, you know, or there might be a small difference, but normally you guys are the same people. When you start telling people that this is what they're going to do, they tend to take that as, oh, I don't have my own free will. I'm going to do the opposite.
Well, honey, I have been preempted by beings working with my higher self to the point where I have sat and cried it out, and I understand I do not have free will.
Yeah.
I have a job I am here to do, and that is my entire reason for existence. So whatever free will I had was lost when my prior life self signed the contract.
Mhm.
And I have not been shown the contract other than it's a thick, big book. I got to watch my prior life self finishing up the book saying, it's impossible, I'll be crazy by the end, but better me than someone who's new here. And signing his name on it. And I'm like, fuck, if I ever get my hands on you, you're dead.
So the second time around, it leads up to that point. I'm a little more integrated and ready, but not completely. And we show up on the ship. I pick the unit that I'm with, and I don't remember. Like I wrote it down. I just don't remember because it's fuzzy right now. Like who was part of that unit completely. I know that the woman was. I think in that time Will died again because I tried to warn him, and he was like, "Yeah, okay, buddy, whatever," you know. And
I love Will dearly, but
oh no,
he can be really stubborn.
I love the fact that he's stubborn. Trust me. It's
I love Will.
but yeah. So it's
yeah,
like a
no.
similar thing happens to a certain extent because like in the second time, it's like I thought that if I was to be like, hey, this is what's going to happen, people would accept that and be like, yeah. They don't. Normally they go, oh, that's what you think I'm going to do. Fuck you. You don't know anything. You know, I'll
Pretty
do what
much.
I want. And I'm just like, like we're all gonna die. Like, you know, people are like, yeah, whatever. You know, because I mean, we come to a point where people feel jaded to a certain extent because there's so many of these asshole idiots that come out and say, this is what's gonna happen, and then it never does. So once I come out and I'm like, this is what's gonna happen, people are like, yeah, okay, buddy, whatever. You know, like these aren't visions, these are like legitimate, it's gonna happen. There's no turning back from it.
Okay.
And
Now,
in that time,
I've been wondering exactly what you saw me doing because I have I wouldn't call it visions. It's more like a series of nightmares that repeat themselves in a loop. So I'll go through all 5 of them, and then then it'll start over. And this has been going on since 2015. And there was another variant before that that started in the 1980s. So I've been having my own nightmare loops for a long time. So I'm waiting to hear what you say I did because I'm going to compare it to what I've been shown.
I remember there was one time where, like I said, I had you with your abilities. We show up there. There's the black crystalline throne because that's where we hit that location. That's the location I'm there to hit. My altar sitting, I think, if I recall, my altar is sitting on that throne. We show up. You are the biggest threat on the battlefield. The white Draco grabs you from behind and squeezes and blows, basically crushes your head. That was one of the times.
Okay.
And you basically died in that one. I think that's either the first or second one. I can't remember 100%. Because I'm still trying to sift through those to a certain extent. It's like they're relevant, but then again, it's like, you know, there's other ones that are like where I become more successful that are more relevant that I've been sifting through, you know. Like I learned where I failed and I'm like focused on where I'm successful. But yeah, that's one of them. And it just happens real fast. But normally what happens is once we show up, you guys all get fucked with because the white Draco takes over and basically puts you all inside your own minds. So you're all just stuck there like when for instance,
I understand the concept.
Yeah, so it's like when what's his name? I'm trying to think of his name off the top of my head. fuck, I can't think of his name. Anyways, he explained it like when there's the base in Antarctica and the Draco show up and start fucking with everybody and showing them fucked up images of them being murdered consistently and repetitively, and they're basically laughing about it. I'm trying to think of what the fuck, I can't think of his name. That's so weird. Anyways, he was the one that was on Gaia that I talked about when I first did your interview, the first interview we did. But that's neither here nor. Yes, Jason Rice talked about that. So that's basically what happens. And it's like so it comes to a point where that's what he does. He uses my alter clone as a diversion, and then he basically wipes us all out from that point. Like, he basically stops you guys from doing what you're doing, and then kills me, and then either kills me or kills the rest of you guys, and then it's weird to explain. But the second one is kind of fuzzy.
A white alpha Drac is going to be difficult for humans to take down.
Especially when he tries to mess with time, knowing that shit's happening, and get you to focus on one individual while he's waiting and basically sitting and waiting cloaked, so that he can basically wipe us out. That's what happens. But it's the second one is kind of fuzzy, but I believe that I brought along Susan, Frank, you, me, and the woman. So that's the 5 that are there. We failed. I don't remember 100% what happened in the process of us failing. Then comes the third time around. The third time around, I was basically like, fuck it, who gives a fuck? I'm going to do whatever I want. I've already been through this. I'll just do it around the next time around. And it doesn't matter what I do. I'm still forced into fighting. But it's like, I remember the things that I did.
What I've been experiencing is it doesn't matter what I do. I'm funneled into a specific outcome.
Yeah.
So
during that time, it was like, I don't remember 100% if Will was there. I know that the other woman was there, but she was pissed about the whole situation because I just didn't give a fuck, and Susan was pissed
too.
Yeah, Susan was even pissed because she was like, what the fuck,
Susan. God,
I love Susan and Frank.
But
like
I love Susan and Frank, but Susan tends to be pissed.
Ever since I brought them in, every time they're a part of the unit, they are a part of the unit. They are there to fight. They are there to do a mission. They're not there to fuck around. That's their mindset.
Absolutely. That's kind of my mindset too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like you don't want to be there because it's like, from my memories, you don't necessarily want to be there because you feel that you're being forced to be there and that you don't have the free will to choose. But
I kind of had that attitude about my own mission. Yeah.
Plus, it was the whole CIA situation where they broke your arm. You were really fucking like, I don't want to fuck around and do this because they might come after me. And it's like, that doesn't matter.
You remember I had that. Yeah, it's almost 2 years ago they broke my shoulder.
And that's always fucked with you and stayed with you. But this time around is a lot different. Most people try to integrate as best as they can. I don't know. It's weird. It's like each time gets worse with what's going to be the outcome if we fail. But it's like people start accepting what I'm saying a lot easier than what it was before, previously, especially because I'll start telling them what they're going to do or what's going to happen in their life before it happens.
They're accepting it better because they're more integrated.
That too.
With the reintegration comes the memories of that altar. And so the more of those memories you have, the more reasonable you sound, Without
Mhm.
that integration, you
I sound
sound
crazy.
bad shit.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Um,
Oh yeah, I'm sitting here going, okay, yeah.
so,
I was
so,
I was on a show a couple of nights ago, and the guy blew up just because my partner is sitting in the living room and he could hear him breathing. I'm like, where, small apartment, where the hell is he supposed to go? You know?
yeah. But what's funny is like you and him are always together. You always have this show, and you always are trying to fight to save the children every time.
Okay. I've talked about this in conferences, so it's not exactly a secret, but my partner is an incarnated guardian. He is one of the military police of the galaxy, and he was assigned to me. And yes, he will be with me every incarnation. And his job is to keep me from being killed, keep me on track. And when I start heading off the wrong direction, to ease me back. So he understands what I'm supposed to do better than I do. And he's also a shaman. And so he's been helping me with the reintegration. He goes on shamanic trance with me, which is a skill that a lot of people don't have. And he goes with me and makes sure that the soul fragments that I accept are actually me and not pretenders, which is a real problem for a lot of people out there.
Yeah. See, when the last timeline, which was this one in my time, and the fourth one, is when I took everything 100% serious. I didn't fuck around. Whatever it took, whatever I had to give up, whatever, it doesn't like, it's just about the mission moving forward. I mean, I try to have somewhat of a love life or somewhat of a, emotional attachment to keep me grounded, but mainly it's nothing matters but the end game, which is
Well,
winning.
this time you're married and have little kids. You have one on the way, don't you?
So every timeline, I'm with the same woman. We end up breaking up, and once I start integrating, I'm no longer the same person as I am now.
Yeah.
It's the same situation
I've
even
changed
now.
a lot over the years as I've reintegrated, because when you reintegrate, you become all of it, not just part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So
So it's like the first time I was with her, we had kids. The second time I was with her, we had kids. The third time we didn't have kids. And then the third time, like I said, I didn't really give a fuck. So there's a woman so Michael Prince, right? His ex is a piece of me, to explain it. So Pindar, when he talks about Pindar and, her being impregnated and stuff like that, what he thinks is somebody else, but that alter of me has really powerful telepathy. So he made him see somebody that wasn't there. That alter's the one that impregnates her, and we end up having that child. So when I realized that, in the third roundabout, I basically told my wife, because we didn't have any kids, that I had a kid and that was going to be it. And that's that. And I left. And I went to go find her. She recognized me, like when you recognize your other half. She recognized me, was like, you shouldn't be here. And I had her activation codes so that she could remember. So I used her activation code, gave her her memory, so she realized what had happened, what had taken place, and went from there. So when Michael Prince talked about it, what it was is we were in the black throne. We were in that room with the black crystalline throne. I was sitting on there. I used telepathy to make him think that he was seeing somebody that wasn't there. Mind you, that individual and Michael Prince worked together in the unit that I was talking about normally. So
That could create problems.
that's why he showed him images of someone else, because he's a coward. And Michael Prince was there, his ex-wife's father and mother, and then the individual that's the go-between between the 13, between the main bloodlines and the individual Pindar. So she was brought in, her altar was brought out, her sex kitten altar. He basically screws her in front of the father and the mother, and Michael Prince is sitting there bawling his eyes out, watching his wife be fucked by another man, and has no way of stopping it. So that's why he lost his shit the way he did. Okay. So when he talked about Pindar, he said the name of somebody who wasn't even there. That individual that he thought is Pindar isn't Pindar. So that's that basically. In the third timeline, I found her, started to try to have a life with her, brought her aboard the, when I was aboard command, the Ashtar command, aboard the ship, I had her part of that unit. The woman that I know was pissed about that, and the whole reason why that happened was because I was scorned. Okay. What a fucked up lifestyle I get to live, so I was like, fuck you, fuck everything, this is what I'm going to do. And this woman was like, I can't fight, because she only has like an ability, but it's nothing necessary, that would be useful. Susan was like, what the fuck? And the other woman was like, I'm out of here. If she's going, I'm done. And I just basically looked at her and was like, well, fuck off then, and she was like, like stormed off. Susan was like, what the fuck? Like, are you fucking serious right now?
I can hear Susan.
And wanted to sit there and be like, I'm done. But she was like, fuck it, whatever. You know what? Let's just fucking do this shit. And me, her, Frank, this other woman, and I think somebody else, I don't know who the fuck the other person is 100%. I'm still trying to figure that out. I think I narrowed it down, but I don't know 100%. But we show up there, we get ready to fight, and yada, yada, yada. I already know somewhat of what's going to happen. I'm just like, I don't really give a fuck. Then this bitch betrays us. She literally is like, oh, I don't want to fight. I join you, and like, join Pindar. And I'm like, you fucking bitch. Because so like in the second one, what had happened is the woman that I've been talking about, that I haven't named because she's not public, one of her altars was created by this Pindar. He created this altar, and he knows her activation code, brought her out because she wasn't integrated, wasn't able to integrate that altar, which she did in this time, but wasn't able to integrate that altar. And he activated that code. And because of who I am, when she went and stood by him and joined his side, I was like, fuck it. And I killed everybody in the unit myself. And I basically joined with them, and everything went to shit. The third time, I was like, I knew what was going to happen, or what was a possibility of what was going to happen. I was like, fuck it, whatever, I was blown off. So that's why I went and found my counterpart, who like, when you come in, there's a piece of you that gets born that's whatever you're not. So if you come in as a man, there's a female that gets born, and it's a piece of you basically. Or if you're a woman, there's a male piece. But that's what that was. And she ended up betraying us, and it just all got fucked off. And I think in that timeline, the 5G network situation came to fruition, and they used that to activate the average people, and gave them orders to hunt down and kill super soldiers or starseeds. And that was in the third one. In the fourth timeline, the unit was me, Will, the woman, Frank, and Susan. And I brought Michael Prince along. I was able to get him to come along. Normally he doesn't give a fuck, he stays out of it. You know, he knows who I am once I talk to him, and he basically is the Archangel Michael. He came here, he talked about in his book, he came here from me calling him into this solar system because of the dark ones. And his ego is extreme because he is the Archangel Michael, and he thinks that nobody can give him orders. He's on his own ship, and he basically goes to attack them, but they set it up to where they would get him karmically entangled along with everybody that was on that ship to be forced here on this planet. Okay. And I try to sit there and be like, no, don't do it. And he's like, you have no authority to order me. You know, this is my ship. And I was like, give everybody on your ship an option. Like, don't just sit there and, you know, and everybody on the ship was like, you know, we don't care what happens. We serve Michael, and we will go and we will fight. And if we die and we're karmically entangled, it is what it is, basically. And that's why I keep coming here, because I don't know how to explain it. It's like the most honorable thing I've ever seen. Even here and now, that's the most honorable thing I've ever seen, but the most stupidest decision I've ever watched. But it's the honor factor of them willing to give themselves to free this planet. So that's why I'm here, to free this planet so that my people can be freed and Earth can be freed at the same time, because this is my planet and this is my solar system, and you guys are my charges. Like, you're my wards, basically. So it pisses me off, but at the same time, like, I talk to him, he kind of doesn't want to do it, and I start explaining everything. I basically educate him on who Pindar really is, and he comes along with us. The thing is that it works out better, but he ends up killing dude when dude was like, hey man, I'm sorry, you know. He's like, oh yeah, stabs him, and then he goes and sits on the black crystalline throne. And because of the mass genocide that is going to take place, it weakens the veil between the third and fourth dimension, opens it up, and the real Nazis come through, which are beings that are of the dark, that are inhabiting bodies of a faction, a group that went into this realm. And there's the slaves that they took, they were manipulating them on a physical level, and they become like meat sack, bat looking creatures. It's hard to explain. It's like fucking weird, and they fly around and attack things, but it's like just rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of black Nazi uniformed killers. Like, they're just one mindset, kill everything. So that happens. Me, Susan, Frank, like, they actually have some memories of that. When I talked to them, they were like, whoa, that's weird, you know, because we fled to their house, where their mother was, and it was like we were talking, and they had brought that up, and they were like, so that's what that was, you know. So they had a situation where they saw that happen, and time basically was like, you know, in their memories collapsing together. So that was a weird situation, but we weren't able to stop it. When that happened, there was much more to that. So in the process of that, I tried to call all the different factions to Earth to defend Earth. Nacht Waffen joined with them against us and decimated. All the factions were decimated. Nacht Waffen ended up on top, along with this Nazi faction, this Dark One faction. And they basically went off the planet and started killing people on other planets in the solar system. And once that happened, that fucked up everything. And we were taken, like me and my brother, the people that are my brother and sister, we were taken back to our main ship, and they were like, stay here, you fucked up, don't move, yada yada, you know, which this being is technically, I guess, our mother. But it was just a whole weird situation that happened with that. It fucked everything up. And it's wild to explain. It was the worst thing I've ever seen. And it's like we were hunted down and humanity was subjugated, and it was like no holds barred, basically. So I don't know if you, I don't know if you might remember that or not.
A thing coming that I've seen that if it's not stopped, humanity is going to be completely enslaved.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're talking about the black ships?
no, I know the black ships are coming. I've been seeing those for about 5 years. And they're Draco ships. And I know that the factions unite to beat them. And the factions by that time, most of the Germans will be back in the solar system because the Guardians are sending them here.
Yep.
And it's not the Alliance beating them, it's the Guardians are sending them. And they're getting first pick of the worlds in the Oort cloud. And the Alliance is ICC, and they've been picking off ships here and there and pretending that it's some great thing that they're doing, when all they're doing is picking off rescue ships.
Well,
and I've been seeing Nacht Waffen and ICC go to war in this solar system. And the Draco Armada showing up in the middle of it. And once they beat the Armada, then they go back to killing each other. And what I've seen is the Guardians pretty much seal everybody into the solar system and let us fight it out. And there's not very many humans left anywhere when it's done. This is what I've been seeing. And
sounds like the fourth time, yeah.
I've been seeing, because I'm hop interdimensionally, I've been rising above the timelines. And sometimes I see them like threads, and sometimes I see them like a river flowing. And I'll see them split, like form an island and then come back together. Or what I had been seeing in the 1990s, approximately 20 fractures of this timeline came together. And the ones that had a person here, those people continued. The ones that there wasn't a person here, those people simply disappeared. And that's what the Mandela effect is all those 20 some odd timelines, fractures, mending. And there are two eventual endpoints. One is where the Guardians sterilize Earth because of the AI, and the other one is where humanity revolts and we end up freedom. And it's bloody as hell to begin with, but it's the only way we will survive. And I'm supposed to be telling people this. I'm also supposed to be exposing the criminality of these black ops and the fact that everything is based on kidnapping children. This is horrific by anyone's standards. And to have so many people treat me like I'm mere entertainment, when this is this is the crime of the century. You've got millions of children being kidnapped from their beds, used in space, used for adrenochrome, put in the sex trade, all sorts of things. I mean, you have almost 2,200 altars, and every one of them's used for something. So what are they using all these kids for? You know, I know what I remember being used for, and it's not nice. And then I start talking about it, and it's, well, you know, you're delusional. It had to have happened in just your consciousness. It couldn't have happened in your body. Oh, right, I had to have a 4-hour surgery because it was my consciousness. You know,
the sheep will never believe until it happens.
They're not going to believe until they see the ships in the sky, and then they'll think, oh, ETs. No, it's going to be fucking humans.
It's a human ET process, but yeah, sure.
It's going to be humans killing each other in space, and you're going to get to watch the light show and go, oh, we're being invaded. No, those are humans. It's when you see the black ships from the Draco that you're going to actually have something. Or if the Department of Defense is really stupid enough to allow the mantids in, because the mantids have been waiting for this opportunity for millennia, a chance to legally invade Earth, which they have wanted for thousands and thousands of years, and think we're doing a crappy job taking care of it. So, yeah, the Department of Defense asks them to come in and do a hoax invasion so that the Department of Defense can take over the world, one, and let common people know there are ETs, two. Right. They never thought about that those mantids are going to want to have the planet for themselves.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
So, you know, there's all this crap going on out here, and it's all going down at the same time, and it has to all be dealt with. Any one bit of it fail to be beaten, and you've still got humanity dead.
So on my timeline, we were successful. Humanity did survive. And we basically educate the rest of the universe that we are not going to be fucked with anymore. The Draco try to come in and keep control of us, and they get educated real quick on who they're dealing with moving forward.
Yeah, what I remember is that we beat the Draco.
Yes.
But that war between Nacht Waffen and ICC is ongoing until there's no more of either one of them.
In my timeline, they're dead too. We put them down as well. There will be no more factions other than one. And that will be this timeline moving forward.
Well, if what some of these people are failing to understand is the German history is bankers have been trying to genocide the German people for 1,000 years. And the Vatican has been since there was a Vatican. So either of those groups will be unacceptable to any German person.
Yes. The German people are not going to be genocided. It's going to be their military will no longer be in existence. They're done. These people have all of these factions. The ones that do not submit will be broken. And that is what's going to happen moving forward.
Submit to who?
Well, the people that I serve is the Brotherhood of Light. They're also a branch of the Federation, from what I've been told. But it's basically humanity is going to get the opportunity to control its own self moving forward, which means we're going to have a seat on the council that oversees this planet. a voice, which is going to be, which normally gets chosen. I put forth 2 names, they get chosen to stand there and basically try to get them to help us, which most of them don't want to. But
no, they don't. The Guardians have told me that after all of this warfare is done, humanity as it remains will be given the choice to become a level 0 galactic civilization. That we have been offered this 4 times before and have always turned them down.
I think that dealt with what, Thor, right? I think he was the one who came, if I remember right. I don't know 100%, but was
Now,
here and
Valiant
was
Thor
like,
was one of them that
yeah,
was trying to offer the deal and was turned down. But
yeah,
every time humanity as a whole has voted no. And so they are not anticipating us saying yes this time, but they're still going to offer in good faith.
they
And if we vote no, we will be pushed into the Stone Age to start over.
humanity as a whole will no longer be given the option.
Okay.
They are going to do what they are told because this is what is necessary. They're going to be given the right to go into space. If they act appropriately, they will be given technology. The problem with humanity is they want technology for selfish reasons, which is the
Humanity
biggest
is
issue.
selfish.
Yes.
I'm sorry if you haven't figured that out by now. As long as they have a roof over their head, food in their belly, and something to fuck, they really don't care what happens to anybody else.
Yeah. Like there was a timeline I remember being like basically stepping forward and being what would be considered the president of what remains of America. There is no more there's no more Congress, there's no more Senate. There's basically, I was the only one in charge. You had different political factions that wanted certain things, and I signed edicts to give them med tech. I signed edicts to give them printable food, basically, like anything you can imagine. And all they did was become more derelict. The people that align on a leftist side rebelled first. The super soldiers that I had were given orders and we wiped them out. Then the right stepped up because they wanted a constitutional republic again. And because they weren't allowed to vote somebody in to oversee them. And the order went out and they were put down. Then it got to the point there was very few humans left on this planet. And Will, for instance, approached me and was like, we've wiped out most of humanity. What's the point in this bullshit? I'm done. Which is funny because I had a conversation with him and he said exactly what he said, and I had memories flood and I was like, well, that's weird, you know. I don't want to be that person. The best timeline that I've seen is when I am in space, wiping out our enemies and making sure that we have a posture which is peace through defensive strength, which is if you don't come and fuck with us, we will not hunt you. But if you are part of the group that serves the Black Crystalline Throne Collective, that is an AI, I believe, which is the Black Goose situation, you will be put down after you've been given the option to turn away. A lot of them have an ego issue where they think that because they've been going around doing what they've done, that they are just going to continue, and that's not going to happen anymore. Susan and Frank will be the individuals that will be overseeing and fighting on humanity's behalf to be given things and oversee the council. They don't oversee the council, but they are part of that galactic council, and they try their best to get humanity as much as they can. And though they hate their position, they do it because they know that they are the only two that can actually match them and fight for us in a diplomatic way. So those are the two individuals that people should be looking to once everything hits the fan and we do win. like I said, in my timeline, we did win. There will be black ships that will show up and they will think that they're just going to subjugate us and put us back in our place. And they're going to find out that that's not going to happen. And that because of the fact that we have been granted our Draco DNA and our human DNA and the mixture that we have, that we are a very ruthless and strategic race of beings that will protect humanity moving forward. So that's what happened in my timeline. Solar Warden will be taken and integrated as part of our military in space. Those individuals that were in power will be removed. The other factions will be given the option to either join or be dismantled. Most of them have an ego problem where they think that they're just going to keep doing the shit they're doing, and they will be decimated. Those who decide to continue to follow them will be put down too. But that's pretty much what happened in my timeline. After I succeeded in doing these things, I made a conscious choice to come to other timelines to help them. I will not be overseeing Earth. Not that I don't have an option to do that, but that is not what I want to do moving forward. Only because I don't have the temperance to deal with humans in that measure. I'm like a hammer, and if there's a nail, I'm going to hit it. And that's basically who I am. And after I'm done here, I'm going to be moving on to a different timeline, so on and so forth. But that is my place here, and that is what I'm here to do. And as I integrate more, because unlike a lot of people, I don't have the option to have somebody like you do that is a shaman. I am able to learn how it goes, and then I just spend the time to force myself to do it myself, and then I start hunting down and integrating my shards from this lifetime. And I eventually get to the point.
Make sure that they're all you.
Yeah, I get to the point where I try to integrate shards from previous lifetimes here, and then I just say, fuck it, I don't need to do that. I mean, granted, you can, but it's a waste of time for me. That's a waste of time.
I've gotten some from past lives, and they're spunkier than Penny was.
I mean, they're interesting. Don't get me wrong. It's interesting. Like, I have a past life. The last life I was here, I was a woman. I met my brother and sister. We started fighting the Dark Ones. They showed up. They slaughtered my brother and sister, left me paraplegic, and I had to live out a life as a paraplegic. I literally had to. I signed everything over to my son.
The last life before this one, I was a Jewish man born in Switzerland, and I was lucky and escaped to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a jerk, an absolute fucking self-centered, obnoxious man. And Penny spent 30 years paying off the karma of Al.
Yeah, see, mine was, I watched my brother and sister that I finally met get exterminated. And it was funny because the woman that I know, she was the one who stepped up and was like, hey, maybe we should stop doing this. And me and Will were like, in that lifetime, me and Will were like, no, let's just do it and keep fighting. And she was like, I think this is a bad idea. And her and him both die. They basically leave me paraplegic as their form of, this is what happens when you fuck with us. And I had to have my own son kill me because I couldn't do it myself, so that I could go back to my original body. But
that's a hell of a thing to do to your kid.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, hey, I'll sign everything over to you. And like, he still didn't want to do it, but I finally talked him into doing it. And I think if I remember right, he strangled me to death in my wheelchair. He didn't even believe me either. I was like, I'm not even this person. He was like, Mom, you're crazy. And I'm like, just kill me.
Yeah, I can see, Pop, you're crazy.
Yeah. So that was a weird past life, but that one really screwed with me. And it was like, I finally came to, and then that's when I came to this timeline and entered into the body that I'm in now. But like I said, this is my 6th time. And I mean, they always change their tactics to match whatever we have to do. So it doesn't matter what they do. My tactics are going to change once I get to that point. But the enemy's done from my perspective. And right now is their clemency time to turn away. So if they do, from my point of view, they're granted clemency. But once the war starts, it's over. You join the enemy, you're going to die. That's that. Johan is another unit leader who attacks the Antarctic base. I don't know what unit he has. I know that once I win, I go to wherever the fighting's the heaviest, and Susan and Frank, and I think it's Susan and Frank are with me, and we fight. My brother and sister, I think that they died and they came in their original body, because once we die, we have made in my timeline, we made a conscious choice to say, we're coming here as our true selves and we will slaughter whoever gets in the way, because we've had enough. This planet does not deserve what they've gone through, and it's done. The people that I do serve is
gone a little bit past our time, and there is a show after this one. So if you have a couple of, we can do a couple of minutes before we have to go.
Sure. But yeah, so I mean, that's basically what happens. And my brother and sister come in their true form, and you know, it is what it is, you know. But humanity will be freed one way or another. So like, don't be so afraid. The average people are never going to believe us, but they will once it's done. And it's going to be funny because it's going to be caught on camera, because I bring a certain individual along with the camera crew to video record everything, live feed. Most of them think it's CGI until it's over and done with, and then humanity's like, holy fuck. So that's one of the things. Like, I've done this the covert way. It never works. I've done it the public way, like I'm doing now, which is telling you what's going to happen. The point is, if you're a super soldier, integrate so you're not controlled.
Yeah.
Because once you're fully integrated,
I've been watching super soldiers when they're in person, and they're every little thing will trigger. And I went through, God, I think it was 4 months that I was just like a Rolodex, and I was doing this on air. So it was really embarrassing.
You're going to notice in the coming years, they're going to start releasing movies to mock us.
They've already been doing that.
Yeah, but it's going to be more intense. So I hope they keep doing that, because all it does is force and push us to continue to integrate more. Fuck you. You're not going to win. And that's pretty much what I'll leave off on.
All right. Well,
thank you for letting me come on your show, Kenny. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming. And Daryl? Daryl?
And the stream is now shut off.